This week's episode of Weekly Tech Update is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at audibletrial.com/WTU. There are now well over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Windows Phone, or your Kindle. Good day and welcome to episode number 346 of Weekly Tech Update for February 23rd, 2016. In this episode, we are discussing that Apple says no to the FBI, Facebook says yes to ads in Messenger, and the HTC VIVE is available for a mere $800. Stay tuned for those stories and more here on your Weekly Tech Update. We are busy. I'm burning the candle at both ends here at BCC HQ South. Happy to be here, though. I'm Benjamin Hyde.
And broadcasting down the road from BCC Hardware Souther, I'm Jason Schneider.
Jason, you're here, you're busy, you're scheduling time. It's just been nuts, man.
Oh, well, yeah, everything's, it's a busy time of the year for some reason, and we've got our annual LAN party coming up on Thursday, so, basically, the rest of the week is shot, so I guess we're just trying to get everything done before then.
Exactly. You know, there's lots of planning involved with the LAN party. A lot of people. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and they're like, "Oh yeah, so you're throwing a game party, so everybody just like brings their own stuff, right?" I was like, "Yeah, it's a lot of work." Like, they asked me, "How is it a lot of work?" I'm like, "Well, I guess if you want prizes and things to work right, it takes planning, but that's okay."
Yeah, that's the thing is everyone thinks that the prizes just show up in a big box and it's like, hey, free stuff. No,
not quite.
And then everybody wants to play in tournaments, and
and
there's a lot of planning. Anybody who's ever put on a LAN party knows how much planning it is, especially if you want everything to work when you walk in the door. And I guess it's probably easier than it once was. Everything's a whole lot more plug and play and everything. I guess we've done it enough years.
Well,
it's a little easier technically, but
there's a lot of pre-configuration. And I mean, I do thank God for the sponsors we have that have given us a bunch of hardware over the years that we use year to year, so that stuff can stay configured. Yeah. We don't have to sit there and So, but either way, there's lots. It's lots of work, but it is.
But it's always funny because every LAN party we've ever had, no matter what the size is, on the last day someone goes, "We should do this again in a couple months." And I think our expression is probably pretty transparent now, because it used to be like, "Yeah, that's a great idea. We should do something," and then it just kind of doesn't happen. But now it's kind of like. Now I think both of our response is, you should do something in a couple months.
Exactly. I'll show up. I'll try and show up.
It's fun to show up when you don't have to, when you can just, take your laptop, open it up, and play some games. But,
absolutely.
It's the 2 months of preparing for a LAN party in 2 months that would be a problem.
I've been going, because this year the LAN party's moved up, and got back from CES, and it's just been nuts. A month and a half of just nuts. Yeah. So.
Well, it's a fun event, and I mean, unfortunately, it is a local event, so obviously, most people listening to this are not going to make a trip to the South Calgary region to come to a LAN party. But if you are lucky enough to be in that region,
definitely,
it's a fun time, and obviously, LAN parties definitely aren't as popular as they used to be. I mean, we used to have one in Alberta here, up in Edmonton. I mean, it was 700-800 people, which was mind blowing.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that many computers hooked up together in a single room was quite an experience. Obviously, that interest has dropped, and I think they're down to 100 or so people. We're at that 50 person, 55 person range. Mm-hmm. It's definitely gone down, but anywhere you are, you can probably find a group of people who are still doing it because it's fun. Like it's not even just about playing games. It's about. It's just
exactly. There's a group. We were talking before the show. We've kind of got four factions that have grown. Like, it's word of mouth, right? So we've got our local group that we do see each other more than once a year. Right? And then you've got a great group of people from Lethbridge that we kind of only see once, maybe twice a year if you run into them at some other event or something like that. So it's a big social event. Then you got a group from Calgary, and then you got a group this year, a bigger group from Revelstoke, BC. And, so we meet some new people, they spread the word, and this is still about the only time we get a chance to sit down and have some fun, and social. Like, I social more than I game because, well, that's I don't have a chance to practice throughout the year. I'm busy enough, but
you can only get destroyed in games for so long before you need to find something else to do. But
exactly.
But yeah, we kind of had our group of people who started the LAN party, and I guess we're probably kind of one of the last two that were there right at the beginning that actually still
1998, sir.
Yeah, that's been a few years. But then now, like you said, there was a group from Lethbridge and they started coming, and then they started bringing their friends, and now there's a group from Revelstoke and they bring their friends, and now there's even. I guess the more encouraging thing is there's a new group of people, even local people, that are getting into this, and every year they're bringing more and more friends, and that's kind of nice.
It is. That's why we keep doing it. And next year being our 15th year, I mean, we're anticipating a pretty fantastic year with even better than this year. But I mean, just give a quick shout out to the sponsors before we get going. I was adding up the total value of prizes and support we've got given out for our 50-person LAN. That's we're giving out about 10 grand.
Yeah,
for our 50-person LAN. That's
and that's another one of those funny things is every time you don't want to hound everybody, right? Especially when sponsorship goes. I mean, you kind of just try to send out the feelers, and every year we usually have a discussion about 3 weeks before where it's like, it might not have so many prizes this year, and then it's always the last couple of weeks where people are like, oh yeah, hey, no, box is on its way, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, like our sponsors are awesome, and
they are. Yeah.
And I guess all these companies see a value in these local get together events, these LAN parties where people are actually getting out there, and for a lot of it they probably sell a lot of products because you're like, people see this technology, they see other people who are using it, they have a chance to talk to people with the same common interests that are building gaming rigs and all this, and it's probably actually a pretty good promotion. So
it is.
We're happy to promote them because they definitely have supported us, and some of these companies have supported us for well over a decade.
They have, exactly. That's exactly right. So no, that's kind of the fun of it. When I go to LAN parties, other places, you kind of always check out other people's hardware, right? You check out the gear, you see what's going on, and if it's awesome, you probably end up buying some.
It's a car show.
It is.
If you don't understand, if you don't get what a LAN party is, it's a car show. It's this system that you've built, you've customized, you've done all this fancy stuff. You got fancy paint, you got whatever. That's your car, and it's basically the same thing, I guess. A little more nerdy, but in the end, it's a car show, and everybody is checking out what everyone else has done, and it's fun. And yeah, I don't know. I guess that's probably the only reason we're still going so many years later, because I wouldn't consider either of us gamers anymore.
No, I'm not. Exactly. Last year I would have said no. I'm still a gamer. This year I'm totally agreeing with you.
Okay, you finally resigned yourself. Well,
I think I've probably played about 30 hours in the last year. I don't think that qualifies me as a gamer anymore. Really?
No, I can honestly say I have not opened up any of the games that we were playing on this weekend since the last LAN party.
Oh, I have, but not much. So,
but I resigned myself 5 years ago. That
exactly.
I'm not a gamer. I mean, if you want to play some old game that I know how to play, I'm all over it for a couple hours till I get bored. But
no, exactly. It should be fun. I will give one shout out to one company, Rosewell this year. They came along at CES and they said they wanted to be involved in a huge way. So they are actually providing basically a prize for every person at the event, as well as some grand prize stuff, as well as they're going huge, and we actually will be promoted throughout the weekend with special sales and stuff over at Rosewell's own site. In Newegg as well. So Newegg is chipping in. So that's awesome.
So if you can't be there, find another LAN party around you. There will be local LAN parties. And if you have any interest in technology, computers, gaming, and all of that, you can probably find some people that are you'll probably find some very friendly people who have the same interest as you. So there's still LAN parties going on. Maybe not as many or as big as they used to be, but it's if that's of interest to you, it is a fun weekend or a fun. I mean, ours has kind of ballooned into 3 nights, Thursday to Sunday morning. But there's a lot of one night LANs and 2 nights, and it's a good time. Definitely worth checking out if you've never been a part of that.
It's a great thing to check out if you're going to a LAN though. One game that would be fun to bring along is Black Ops 3. And it's still pretty expensive. It's actually pretty cheap if you're into multiplayer only, such as at a LAN. You can now pick it up for $15 on Steam. Just FYI.
Yeah, that's this is an interesting concept.
Yeah, it is. Did you buy it?
No.
Because, well, you're not a gamer.
Well, yeah, I haven't played any Call of Duty or any really first-person shooters since last year. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But anyways, so here's the deal. So basically, the full version is about $85
Right. Yep.
Canadian. So you probably get it cheaper if you're elsewhere. But so what they've done is they've done a $15 Steam special where you can get the multiplayer starter pack, which gets you basically the online capabilities, not all the maps, not all the all the fun features, but enough to get you playing online, get you hooked on it, and then you can upgrade. $45 you can get to the standard, and then I guess the digital deluxe is $85. Is that $85 on top of the 15?
Yes, it is, because that normally in Canadian, well, it's a $100 game, right? So they're not giving you any deals if you upgrade separately, but they're also not punishing you. Right?
Okay.
It's going to be a $60 game straight up in the U.S. or $100 for the digital deluxe, or you can buy it in tiers basically. So
okay.
There's no benefits to buying it separately if you're going to play it, but they're also not punishing you. Which a lot of times, if you like buy the entry level and you try and upgrade any product, they ding you heavier for not buying it in the first place.
Yeah,
where they're not doing that. To their credit, they're not doing that. But yeah, I guess they just want you to play enough to get you hooked. Yeah.
Well, and for $15, you'll get your money's worth.
Right. Exactly. So what you're not getting is zombies, campaign, so single player campaign, so ability to play in multiplayer custom games, so any legit game or stock game, but if somebody's got like their gravity mutator or something like that changed, so you cannot prestige, you cannot access mod tools or even play modded content once it's released. It's not even released yet. Access to unranked server browser once released. It's not released yet either. And you can't fresh start your profile. If you sucked, you're going to have all those sucky stats. And then you can't play in the Dead Ops Arcade 2 in Nightmare mode. So basically, you are getting all of the stock maps. You're getting the stock multiplayer game.
Yeah.
But so, and 90% of people probably only play Call of Duty multiplayer anyhow. So really, this is not a bad way to get into the game for cheap.
What's a cheap way to get on and start playing with your friends and then see if you like it? And you might not. You might go, no, I'm not really feeling Call of Duty. I'm going to move on to something else.
Yeah.
But it's probably a good business model because you're going to get at least $15 off a bunch more people. And you still have that opportunity that they can make, the extra, 45, 85, whatever it is. I think it's actually a pretty good idea. And $15 is an impulse buy. $100 for Call of Duty, or even $85. I think a lot more people jump on this.
Exactly. No, I think you're right.
It's kind of a pay to try.
Exactly. I mean, it's more like when I talked about it on the news of BCC Hardware, I basically said it's a paid demo.
Yeah.
You're paying for demo, and it is way much more than a demo because a demo is generally like one map or maybe two maps in one game mode, something like that. So it's more than a demo, but it's still it's stripped down. But for most people, it's stripped down. They strip out all the stuff that you don't necessarily want because most people don't play a bunch of this stuff, right?
Well, yeah, but if you really like the game, you're probably gonna, if you get 10 hours out of the multiplayer, and you're like, yeah, this is actually pretty fun. I want to play this single player. I want to play zombies. I want to play all this other stuff. It's probably a pretty easy upgrade, but with so many games and so many options out there, I think this is probably a very good way of making more money and monetizing your game.
Yeah.
And it's also good for the consumer because, for $15 you played for 10 hours. That's a pretty cheap game.
Well,
now,
it is, yeah.
We've all bought $80 games, played them for
10 hours.
4 hours, and they've sucked. And then you're like, this was not a good.
This was not great value.
This was not a great value whatsoever. And I mean, we could open up our Steam libraries and probably all point out a couple of them. But for $15, even if you played for 3-4 hours, you're not really out that much. So
no, you're not. That's right.
This is nice to see. I'm surprised it was done with the Call of Duty franchise. They seem to be kind of stuck in their ways.
Well, exactly. But I mean, good on them for switching things
And
up.
I think since it's one of the big guys doing this, I think we're going to see this more because it's going to be popular.
Well, as long, my fear is that as long as it doesn't turn into like a pay to play model where, oh, you want this weapon. Well, now it's like $3. Or you want
Well,
this, and they do those stupid microtransactions in game a lot more. If they do that to build, then it could be very expensive and could completely ruin it. Something like this, I don't see a problem with. But as long as
microtransactions really are the way to make money right now, though, because people
but
people are stupid. They start playing
exactly,
and they go, well, "I'm not going to buy anything," and then it's like, "Oh man, I'm almost to this level." Well, $3 didn't get to that level. Okay, now that you put your credit card in, you spent $3. It's really easy to spend 20, and then 50, and then 100. And there's people who just get completely addicted to the game.
Yeah,
and it's just it's like, well, I was going to go to a movie anyways tonight, and that would be $40. By the time I bought popcorn, I'll just spend $40 on Farmville. And it's all of a sudden you look back and it's like, wow, people spend a ton of money. And I don't know if it's as popular as it used to be. I know if I'm looking at a game, which I'm probably a terrible example because of the amount that I actually play, but I do look if there's microtransactions, and that is a buying decision whether I buy it or not. And a lot of times if it's heavily or if it's based on microtransactions, I won't even start playing because I know exactly how it's going to go. Yeah. I'm always going to be behind because I don't want to be paying $1 for every weapon or $1 for every upgrade I want. So I actually steer away from them, and I wonder if that's happening more and more.
It might be, and certainly that's the way it works for me. Like if games require microtransactions, I mean, I don't do microtransactions, but it just what I feel it does is it gives people who are willing to spend a fortune an unfair advantage.
Oh yeah,
right?
For sure.
And I'm not willing to do that. I do know a guy who, when it came to League of Legends, like you can actually earn everything other than player skins. You can earn, and it doesn't take you a long time to earn it if you're willing to play the game. But I do know a guy who was spending almost $1,000 a month on everything he could for League, like all the skins, all the players, just to unlock everything, and then get his like bonus, experience points and stuff like that. Like it's incredible what people can spend and do spend, which is why League is such a popular game, because the cost of entry is zero. And yet if you want to, and the thing is, spending money in that game doesn't actually make you better. It just means that you get different items, which again aren't better the way that game model is. It's a weird game model.
But there's a lot of game models that you can do better if you pay.
Yeah.
And I've played a couple online ones, just kind of more casual, log in once a day or once every couple days, and you can gain such an unfair advantage by putting in $20 a month.
Exactly.
And that's how. And then once you put in 20, you're like, oh, why not 40? And it becomes a very frustrating thing if you don't want to be pumping a lot of money into it. Because, I mean, really, for me, the amount that I'm actually gaming, it's not really worth it to be pumping in money into microtransactions because you're never going to get your value out.
No.
Now, League of Legends, if you're playing, if that's all you do, which
some people
do, and I guess more power to them. I mean, maybe $100 a month is cheap entertainment, and good on them. But I know as a casual gamer, that really turns me off on games. And I've noticed more and more in Steam. You look at kind of the reviews, the user reviews, and a lot of it really comes down to it's like, don't buy this game. It's too many microtransactions, and that's I think that business model is really starting to crack.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think that's a good thing, because I think it really sucks for gaming, because buying an advantage is really it sucks.
It does. Yeah.
It really wrecks the experience, and I think that's a lot of reasons why these games come and go so quickly, is because there's no incentive to stay around, because if you can buy your way to the top, why would you play it? Why would anyone else join in?
Why would you try and earn it?
If it's going to cost you $100 to get the same weapons as the other guys.
Exactly. No, I agree with you there. And,
so hopefully this is a better business model. And actually, I like this business model where you pay $15 to start, and if you want the rest of the game, it's an extra $45. Or you can pay $60 to buy it all at once, no penalty.
Exactly. That's what I like about that.
So it's kind of a paid test drive, and I like that because $15. I think pretty much anybody can get $15 out of value in most games.
I bought it.
Did you?
Yeah. For $15, I know there's lots of my old clan that plays Black Ops 3. So
yeah,
I figure I'll buy it for $15.
Yeah, I guess there's not a whole lot of games that I bought where I wouldn't have said they weren't $80 games, but if I had paid $15, I wouldn't have been mad. But
exactly, that's
Dungeon
it. Right?
Siege 3, I'm still mad at because I paid $80 and that was the biggest hunk of crap
Yeah,
game ever. I would have even been a little ticked if I paid $15 for it, but I would have got over it quicker.
Okay.
Wouldn't be 2 years later. I'm still complaining about it.
Right. So sometimes, yeah, well, paying for expensive things kind of taints you, especially if they suck. Kind of like the HTC Vive. Like, I don't think this thing's going to suck necessarily, but at $800, is VR for $800 worth anything? Like, is it?
I don't know. People still seem excited about it.
I don't know. Like, I guess I should have tried. It was at Zotac's party. They had a couple of these HTC Vive kits, and I mean, in the name of I don't know, not passing diseases, I really didn't want to put on some sweaty VR goggles and headphones. I didn't want lice or some skin condition from somebody else, so I didn't demo them. And I guess maybe I should have, so I could actually have a real opinion on this. But I mean, $800 to strap on a headset that you have to plug into a heck of a computer. And then wave two magic wands around. Well, you have a room big enough to set up the base sensors. I don't know, man.
Okay, so now there's just.
I don't know.
I think full disclosure, neither of us are really sold on the whole VR.
No, I think it's amazing. Wink, wink.
Okay, so all right, we can.
No,
I'm
I don't.
I'm gonna take the. I'm not sold on it because I think there's just too many. Well, first off, my opinion is it's gimmicky.
Yeah.
It's cool, to put on a demo and then walk around and be like, oh, this is kind of cool. But realistically, first of all, nobody has the space for this thing.
Yeah, well,
you look at these demos and you have to have the base sensors and everything. You have to have a pretty good sized room and you're standing in the middle. Second of all, even with the base sensors and everything, I've watched enough people do these demos. The base sensors don't do squat. People go past them, run into walls and furniture. So you have somebody always at these demos, stopping you when you get to the edge.
Yeah, I think you would learn that once you played it for a while. You would understand.
Yeah, if you ran in the wall 4 or 5 times, maybe.
Yeah.
But so even logistically, like it doesn't really.
Well, exactly.
There's some issues. This isn't I can go sit on my couch and enjoy this because you can't. Yeah, no. I mean, other than you can move your head a little bit, but as far as to get the full immersive experience, you can't be sitting on your couch just, relaxing. You have to be up and moving and, you got to have the whole setup. So I think logistically, this just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But even as far as content goes, so we were given some of these VR headsets, not these HTC Vive ones. Ours were not $800, but
no.
The thing is, I've used mine. And I used it for about I'll say an hour. It was probably more like 30 minutes by the time I actually did it. But even there's not a lot of practical things you can do with it. Sure, there's some cool games where you move around, but really it's not a relaxing experience because you have to be moving your head all the time. You're moving your arms around and everything. Like it's fun for a little bit, but for me to sit there for 2 hours, I'm not really interested. And now the other thing is, as far as games go, you might be able to find some cool things, some simulators and stuff like that. But as far as watching content, that's not how you watch TV. That's not how you watch anything. I mean, because they film it with these 360 cameras. So, I mean, something's going on ahead of you and then you have to look behind you. Well, that's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you're trying to wheel around to look what's behind you and then something, there's sound coming from the other side. So you have to wheel around and it's just, it's kind of a tiring experience. It's not, it's immersive, but it's actually kind of annoying.
That's right.
Having to be moving around, trying to watch this video, like, it's supposed to make you feel like you're in it, but you more feel like,
which is
it would be like a group of friends standing around in a circle having a conversation, you standing right in the middle. I mean, that's not how you interact because, when one guy talks on the one side, you don't then have to wheel around to talk to the other guy. You kind of stand face to face. So it's an unnatural experience in my opinion.
Well, I get what they're trying to do with immersive, and it certainly is. And for the demos like roller coasters and different things like that you used to stand in the big movie screen like right up close and you have that motion experience without actual motion. I get what they're doing with the immersiveness, but no one sits there and wants to be in a one of those theaters or whatever forever, right? You want to be in there for a bit. You get your kicks and giggles, and then you carry on. Because
really,
it's tiring.
This is a 10-minute device.
Yeah.
It's very cool for 10 minutes, and then I just question how much you actually use it, and especially when you're spending $800.
Yeah.
If you think Dungeon Siege 3 was a terrible value for money, I kind of wonder. Like,
play Dungeon Siege on an HTC Vive.
But I mean, people are going to be making better content for it. Maybe it makes it a little more valuable, and I mean. I guess there's probably people who will, sit and play this for hours, but I don't get it.
What blows my mind is that you're going to need a GTX 970 or AMD Radeon R9 290 card. And they're applauding the price of $800 because the Rift was $600 from Oculus. And they were expecting this to be over $1,000. So the industry is like, HTC, like, they knocked us out of the park. This is amazing. $800. It's like, for what though? Like, I'm not going to sit down, and especially with the Vive, it is like the perfect, in my opinion, the perfect example of a device for someone who lives alone in a basement that never wants anybody to come visit them. Because when we're at the demo, we're sitting there spectating, so you can watch what's happening on the screen. And so you're sitting on the couch, and then you move your leg, and it interferes with the plane of where the sensors are. And it's like, hey, stop moving. Get back. It's like, you can't even, like, what's the point? It's like, it is a single player, single user, single experience. Get out of my room.
Oh yeah,
device. Yeah. And mind you, with your headphones on, you couldn't hear anybody anyhow. So I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's the way to completely alienate yourself from the living.
Yeah, and like, it's kind of, there's elements of it that you can kind of compare to the Wii. The Wii was definitely it was something different. Nobody had ever done it. It was very popular for a time, but at least with the Wii, it was a very social thing. You had a few controllers and you could bowl against each other, and that was fun. You were up and moving around, and it was fun for a while. But how many times did you go home and play Wii bowling by yourself?
Or I can count that on one finger.
Yeah, because when you're sitting, a lot of the gaming experience and the entertainment experience is the fact that you can just sit there, relax, and be entertained. Yeah. This really takes the Wii to a whole different level where it's not social anymore. It's really an isolating experience, and it's cool for a bit, but I just don't see people wanting to go home and play this for hours and hours. I think it's very limited. I think it's kind of the 3D TV. It's when your friends come over, you put on the 3D on your 3D TV, and they put on the glasses, and it's like, whoa, this is really cool. That's neat. And then you all take your glasses off, you switch the 3D off, and you watch the football game.
Exactly.
And I kind of think that's what this is, because like you said, it's not even a party game.
No,
like, it's not even something like it's, when you're doing the experience, it really sucks for everybody else who's sitting around watching, because you're isolated, other than you look kind of stupid, waving your arms around and, looking up and down. Other than that, there's really no entertainment value for anyone else in the room.
And the thing is, what I mean, and they can't change this, because it's all motion oriented or sensor oriented. But the thing is that makes it even harder to actually use is the exaggerated motion that it takes, right?
Oh yeah.
Because normally, if you're standing there, you're let's say, you're doing some close quarters combat. I've been through a course, so you're sitting there doing your QCB course, and you're sitting there, you're acquiring targets. You shift your eyes, not your entire body and your hands, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there trying to acquire a target in some shooter game or in real life, a shooter. They're trying to make this experience, trying to make it real. I sit there and look, and just by shifting my eyes, I sit there and acquire the targets. Where the Vive, you have to sit there and turn your head, really high, really low, or whatever, so it can see what you're trying to look at. It's just, there's nothing really natural about it. They're trying to make it natural, but until they track eye movement, like really well, there's nothing. And I guess maybe this is a stepping stone to the next thing, but $800 stepping stone for some single player entertainment that I would use, that most people would use for hours, not hundreds of hours, but hours probably over the course of a month or a year. A little pricey.
Yeah, it's definitely pricey for what you get. I guess it's like with anything. If you want to be an early adopter and you want to be part of the VR experience, you're going to have to pay a price to play, and it seems like that's in that $600 to $800 range. There are cheaper alternatives. Ones you take your smartphone, you pop it into the little holder, and then you strap it to your head. That's
even the Gear VR does that, and it offers a very similar experience.
But once again, it's. I also find it's not a very comfortable experience because this isn't a lightweight, basically helmet you're wearing.
No, this is not. No,
and really, it's almost. I think it's like with 3D and people getting vertigo. I think there's probably a lot of people who aren't going to use this because it's almost a claustrophobic experience.
Yeah. No, definitely.
It's not an actual experience, and like you said, there's so many things that are kind of going against it becoming a mainstream platform that I just really wonder how they're going to do it. And maybe like you said, once they do eye tracking and stuff, maybe it becomes a little more.
Well, then you put your VR goggles, become a pair of Gunner optics with little sensors built in to track your eyes.
Yeah.
Well, now we're talking.
Well, but it's just I think the uses. The practical uses for these are limited. I mean, it definitely, that, for some simulation things, okay, great. But as far as a mainstream entertainment product, I don't think it has what it takes just because there's too many obstacles it has to overcome.
But try telling that to all these companies making them, right?
Well, but the thing is, if you can make $800 by selling one of these, I would be probably a pretty good salesman too.
Yeah.
Because what does this cost you to make? Let's say it costs you $200.
Yeah. By the time all of your R&D is done, it probably wouldn't cost that much. But
yeah. So they're making big bucks on this. It's not. It's. I guess we'll see. But it really just feels like 3D TV to me again. It's too gimmicky to become a mainstream product. I'm not saying there's not uses for it, but I don't think as far as mainstream goes. We got either got a long ways to go where it's not going to happen, and this is just a bridge until we come to some different product that.
There you go.
But as far as strapping something on your face, I don't think people are really too excited about that.
No. One thing that is a good mainstream product that probably will become exceedingly popular is Lenovo announced a bunch of new hardware. And this stuff is priced much cheaper than a VIVE and would be, in my opinion, much, much more useful.
Yep. So, I guess basically Lenovo showing off their, I hesitate to say cheap, but their budget, let's say, devices, which they're not so crummy anymore.
No.
It used to be when you bought a $200 or $300 or $400 laptop, you got a $100 or $200 laptop for that price. There was definitely, you were using technology that was a few generations old, but Lenovo is kind of up their game. They are seeing, and they're probably going to move a lot of these items to people who don't want an expensive device, but still want to be able to have half decent performance. They want the latest operating systems and all of that. And so a few of these new, the Idea Pads, the Yoga lineup, they're definitely pricing them to be very, very, very competitive, and you're still getting the latest technology. So I think as far as budget products go, it's probably pretty hard to pick something over Lenovo because these devices are pretty compelling. We had a chance to look at them firsthand at CS, and you'll probably be surprised what the price tag is of some of these.
Yeah, the Yoga 11, the Yoga 710 11-inch. So this is like your Ultrabook. This is your MacBook Air, full Windows 10. It's it's going to set you back $500.
Yeah,
to get into it.
Your MacBook Air is probably going to set you back $1,200.
Exactly, and I mean they'd be comparable for performance, for sure. Core M5. I mean, so it's a decent system.
Yeah.
It makes it hard to sit there and think about other stuff because I mean Lenovo, like their ThinkPad line. They maintained the quality on that to be really tough. But what we've seen, which is not normally the case with companies, is they have actually brought the quality of their IdeaPad and their other lines, like the Yoga line, they've brought the quality of that up rather than tried to cheapen it out to sell volume.
Yeah.
Right? And Lenovo has done an exceptional job with the quality of this stuff. I mean, these guys are talking hinges and stuff. I mean, that's one thing that Lenovo or IBM was popular for, or infamous for, with their hinges on their ThinkPads, were like they didn't wear down or break out. They stayed tight for as long as you would care to own that device 3, 4, 5 years later. They've done the same thing with the hinges on basically everything. And that's the first failure point.
The quality of these entry-level devices has jumped leaps and bounds over the last few years.
From Lenovo, not necessarily from everybody else.
Not necessarily everyone else, but I think other companies have improved as well. But Lenovo is definitely the benchmark for these lower-end devices, just because, they have moved these premium features into their budget lineup. And, now you can get into their IdeaPad Mix 310 tablet, $229.
Yeah. That's going to compete with your Surface 3. So it's going to have Windows. It's not going to have Windows.
It's going to blow your iPad Mini or even your Samsung, whatever they call their
Galaxy
tablets,
Tab Pro or whatever. Yeah.
For that price, it's going to be pretty tough. That's a 10-inch tablet, $229. You're running an Intel processor, full operating system.
Yeah, that's your Surface. That's your Surface 3, right?
Yep.
There's still your Atom processor, but that's your Surface 3, and it's coming in for about probably about $300 less than a Surface 3, like half price.
And now I'm not sure if the $229 one is going to have the full HD screen, but they do offer the full HD screen. Atom X5 processor. You can get your LTE options. I would assume that's a little bit more. 10-inch tablet, starting at $229. It's pretty tough to beat.
Yeah, no, it does have a 1080p screen on the entry level.
The $229.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yep.
I might actually have to buy a tablet.
Exactly. Well, this is your go everywhere tablet. I mean, this replaces your tablet and your cheap notebook for when you're traveling. Right. What I would not get the 229 one. I would get the one with because the 229 comes with 2 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of storage.
Okay.
I would definitely. It has a micro USB 2 slot, but I'd still want 4 gigs of RAM, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to want 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of storage, or I'm sure that's probably the only configuration it comes with, right?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to give you a lot of options on these.
But if you go with that option right there, you're done. It might cost you an extra $150, but then you're still sitting at like $379, and you're done.
Yeah,
you have
that's amazing
Surface.
Because remember, we've been around long enough to remember the netbook revolution.
Oh man, yeah.
Where everybody bought a netbook, and we all knew that these $300 devices were going to last for a year, and they all lasted for about a year.
Exactly.
But at $300, we're like, who cares? They know this is cheap. Why am I taking my $2,000 laptop with me when I can take this?
Yep.
But you were willing to accept, that the screens sucked, the processors sucked. There wasn't a lot of storage. The keyboard was terrible. The build quality was terrible. You knew everything was gonna basically blow up, but you were like, yeah, whatever, for $300, if it lasts me a year, I'm happy. Well, I would venture to guess that this will last you longer than a year, and you can do a lot more than you ever did on a netbook. So,
exactly.
If you're looking for a cheap device, I think. I would recommend Lenovo right now. There's obviously other ones out there that are very good in that price range too, but Lenovo this year especially really stepped up their game, and it's nice to see. I think they were one of the winners at CES, definitely.
Yeah, I think so too. This is actually a pretty big step up. The 310, the original 300 was 2 gigs of RAM, and yeah, it was definitely this is a huge step up. Better processor in this one. Yeah. Definitely check it out. Definitely check it out. And a better screen. The other one had 2 gigs of RAM, had a 1280 by 800 screen. They've beefed that up this year. They actually have a faster processor. If I could pick one of these up with keyboard for $400 or $450, this would definitely replace my Chromebook and my tablet. I mean, easily.
Yeah, and I guess that's the nice thing, and we probably haven't talked about it lately, is it's the technologies that I can really get behind are the ones that take two products and condense it into one, and I can get rid of two products. Because the thing with netbooks and stuff like that is it was an accessory device. It wasn't nobody bought a netbook and then threw out their ThinkPad.
Right.
This is just for traveling and all that stuff. And that's where tablets were very popular. It's like, well, now I can just take my tablet and I don't actually need to take my laptop. Well, now you can take your tablet and still do laptop stuff, because I found, you see a lot of people at the airport, they got their tablet and it's like, yeah, I got my tablet. And then they pull in their bag and they pull out their laptop as well. It's, they're just carrying two devices. It's nothing's really changed. But so these ultra portable 2-in-1 tablets are definitely, I think, they're a big thing already, but I think they're only become more and more popular. And when the prices have come to the price that they are now, when you can get into one for $229, we're going to just see more and more of these. And I think Lenovo is going to just sell a ton of these, because you set this up at Best Buy at the end of an aisle for $250. I think there's a lot of people are buying it just complete impulse buy.
Totally. And I mean, this is a great device. Now, like you mentioned, people, we like products that converge technologies rather than diverge, right?
Yeah.
The reality is the Mix 310 is not going to replace your ThinkPad laptop, right?
No.
This is an entry-level laptop that's also an amazing tablet. One that could replace your ThinkPad and your tablet is like the Yoga 710, right? That's super powerful. And like that's your iPad Air replacement that folds backwards to become a very thin tablet. Still, just about 2.2 pounds. It's not the lightest tablet in the world, but you could definitely hold it and play around with it, sit it on your lap. And yet you fold it back the other way and it's now a solid laptop with an attached keyboard rather than, all these clip-on things like even with the Surface has, right? There's definitely a limit to what they can do.
Yep.
But yeah, so the Mix isn't going to replace anything. Replace your main laptop.
For some people it will.
That's right. Like for me, it would replace a tablet and a Chromebook.
Yeah.
But it's not going to replace my main workstation, right? Where the Yoga probably could replace a workstation.
Well, yeah, when you're running a 6th gen Core i7, you got your NVIDIA graphics, you got 8 gigs of memory.
Yeah. That's the 14-inch, but yeah.
Yeah,
I would take that one too.
But still, we're talking a higher end specs, which is basically there's not going to be a lot of laptops that are,
much higher than that. Yeah,
much higher than that. That will start at $799. If you want the 11-inch version, you can get into that for $500, which will have the M5 Intel processor. Still some good options. There's definitely a lot. I used to hesitate when people, would ask for advice on what laptop to buy. And usually it's like, well, how much do you want to spend? And they go, well, $400 or $500. And it's like, okay, well, you can get something decent, but you're not going to be, this isn't going to last you years and years. You're not going to be blown away. But if you have limited requirements, it'll be fine. But now really in that $500, $600, $700 range, you can get a full-on system that this is going to last you for a long time. And this is going to have more power than majority of people need.
Right. Yeah,
and
for sure.
that's kind of nice, because it's usually when you're buying in that price range, you're buying just enough power for what you need to do right now, and you're kind of saying, well, we'll worry about the future later. But this definitely will grow with you, and I mean, you should be able to get a few years out of this, unless you have some ridiculous requirements. Which
then you're not going to be spending $500 on a laptop.
You're probably buying a $3,000-$4,000 laptop. Right. But 99% of people out there could get by with one of these 3 devices, and it's not going to break the bank. And and you're definitely getting a lot more value for your money than you were even a year ago, because Lenovo in particular has upped their game.
And it's going to definitely outlast your Seagate 1.5 terabyte hard drive. I can almost guarantee that.
Yeah.
According to Backblaze, they've got their hard drive failure analysis updated for the last year. The biggest loser, Seagate's 1.5 terabyte drive.
How many of these do you have?
None. I had several that
did they fail?
Yeah. Every one of them did. Everyone did. According to them, Backblaze, they're only having a 10% failure rate in the last year, but that's enough.
Yeah, that's rough. And so these are all mechanical hard drives, and they break it down. Really, there's only a couple manufacturers left. A couple of them make different brands. I think HGST is Western Digital,
Hitachi Gold Star. Yeah, no, I think.
Oh yeah, they've all ended up buying each other out. So there's really there's not a lot of people making the mechanical drives, but they definitely are seeing in these 1.5 2 terabyte drives are seeing some huge failures. Even the Western Digital 2 terabytes are seeing a 9.9% failure, so basically 10% failure too. But it's like with anything. Anytime you make a big step up, those first generations of drives usually have a high failure rate. We saw this back when 20 gig hard drives were as big as anyone ever had, and then all of a sudden Maxter came up with their 40 gig drives.
Oh my gosh.
And blew everybody's minds. Everybody bought them, and everybody's failed.
Yeah.
And we've seen this a few times. Anytime there's a big jump in capacity, usually the first gen drives are pretty rough. But hey, they're mechanical drives. They're technology. They are going to break, and even the better ones. So you're still seeing a 1%. Some are only at a 0.5% failure, but that's still. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be backing up your drives. You shouldn't have some sort of a backup. But
the interesting thing is overall, Hitachi, which is Hitachi Global Storage Technologies, and you're right, the Western Digital did buy them out. But Hitachi on all their drives tested over at Backblaze had just over a 1% failure rate in all their drives.
Yeah. And now that we've said that, they're going to start having just a Western junk model, and they're all going to fail.
Western Digital, who owns Hitachi, so same company ultimately. Western Digital's total failure rate was right around 7%. So I mean, Hitachi. I mean, obviously they have better quality. You know, they use they're like the premium drives from Western Digital, right?
Supposed to be allegedly,
and according to 2015 data, yeah, it was, but. Again, we'll see. But mind you, and the interesting thing is Hitachi had way more drives over Backblaze. They were using Hitachi's drives. They had 22,000, almost 23,000 drives compared to Western Digital's 1,600.
Yeah.
So
they had a bigger sample size, and they were still seeing low failures. Seagate doesn't have anything really to write home about, thanks to some of their lower capacity, 1.5 terabyte drives. They saw some pretty high failures too, so they weren't winning by any means, but it's interesting to see. There's still a need for mechanical drives. There's still a lot of people who, when they're building a system, still put in a mechanical drive, either as a backup drive or even as their primary drive. But I guess it's kind of interesting to see when you have to go and make your decision. Charts like these definitely help you and might save you some hassle, but still, there's no drive that has a 0% failure.
No, that's right.
And
exactly.
So buy 2 of them, back them up onto each other,
exactly.
Do something, at least try, because the amount of people who like, but it was a new drive, and it's like, yeah, but guess what? Everything fails,
Exactly.
And then everybody goes, well, can I restore? I want to get it recovered.
Well, good.
Go, no, and then so this is the conversation you have. You go, it's very expensive. Like, what did you have on there? Well, I had all my pictures, and you're like, well, we can get a quote. And then it comes back, and it's $2,000.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little less now, but it was usually $2,000. And then they go, oh.
Well, I guess they weren't that valuable.
And then 2 years later, they phone you up. They're like, oh, you're never going to believe what just happened.
I've had it 6 months later.
I'm giving people credit. I'm pretending like people are smarter than they are. So let's say 6 months to 2 years later, they phone you back and go, you're never going to believe what happened. And you're like, let me guess. Your hard drive failed and you didn't back up. No.
Exactly.
But at least the second time, you don't have to give them that sticker shock of how much it costs to recover.
Yep. But. No, I had, for one client, they blew a drive, and they had a backup system, but it errored one day because the backup system was not on before their computer started, and then they never bothered to restore it. Lost 1.5 years worth of data, rebuilt it for them. They paid the recovery bill of about $3,000 at the time. And then 6 months later, they blew a drive and hadn't been bothering to back up after I got it all working again. So, yeah, that time they just ate the data loss, which is, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's unfortunate, but that happens a lot.
It does.
Anybody who works in technology can tell you stories like that. We could sit around for hours talking about how people lost data, hadn't backed it up, and there's usually a sob story. There's usually tears. You feel terrible for them.
I did the first time. Second time, I didn't feel bad.
I'm a nicer person, so I still feel sorry for them. But there's nothing you can do unless you want to write a big check. And even writing a big check to get it recovered isn't guaranteeing anything.
No. See,
recovering a mechanical drive is actually
A lot easier.
Probably a lot easier than with these SSDs.
Yeah, exactly.
So
well,
just remember that. Backup.
Oh, exactly. All right.
Get a virus detector. Do that as well.
I would. Yeah. And don't install stuff with like CryptoLocker on it.
Yeah. And still, if somebody sends you an email with a weird link in it, and don't open it.
Exactly.
Things that we've been saying for a decade and people still do, and they still phone and tell you what they did.
See, which is why I don't have as much sympathy. No, I had sympathy the first time they created their system, but the second time it was just because of pure ignorance.
Well, those people, yeah, screw them.
So yeah, I did not feel guilty at all or feel bad. There was no sympathy when they phoned back. It's like, yeah, well, we lost our stuff. Was like, you guys got a backup? Well, I'm not sure. So you go in there, it's like, oh yeah, you disabled it 2 weeks after I was here.
Oh, that's yeah.
So yeah, screw you. Next story.
Okay. Well, hey, there you go. That was a happy segment.
Next story.
And upwards.
Apple says screw you to the FBI.
Well, there you go.
And okay, so there's a shooting in the U.S. and very unfortunate. Obviously, that people were killed. The suspects. I guess we have to be politically correct here. Until they're convicted, they're suspects. The suspects were using Apple devices, namely their Apple iPhone, and the FBI wants Apple to decrypt it so they can search it, and Apple says no. Now, I get why the FBI wants Apple to unlock it for sure, and I think in a lot of ways they should, but that's a horrible slippery slope if the security we're paying for. And the companies promise to keep our stuff secure if they just hand it over to when someone wants it.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a slippery slope, and the FBI definitely wants to even go a little bit further. They want a backdoor into these devices, so basically they can pretty much just log in, get the information they need. No fuss.
That's horrible.
Done, and that's a scary thing. Obviously there's situations where it would be nice to be able to get this information, but on the other hand, I guess after being involved with technology for so many years, that the FBI has very smart people working for it.
Yeah.
But there is much smarter people out there.
Yes.
And somebody will always figure a way around it. And now all of a sudden we have backdoors in all our devices. And it's not going to just be used by the FBI.
No.
It's going to be figured out. Somebody's going to figure out how to exploit this backdoor. And then all of a sudden there's a lot of data missing. There's a lot of credit cards stolen. There's a lot of personal information stolen. This is a slippery slope. And while I think their intention is good, it's dangerous. And so basically this week has been all about companies piling on and saying, yeah, we agree. Or there's been a couple people who said, no, it should, there should be a backdoor. All the big guys, obviously, Apple kind of led the charge here because they're kind of the ones being made example of. But, you had WhatsApp founders say, yeah, we agree. Facebook, all the big companies basically said, no, we don't want backdoors. It's dangerous.
No, it's right. It is. Certainly is.
And so I don't know. I don't know where this goes. I don't know. Obviously now what these companies are doing, and Apple, and especially their CEO Tim Cook has basically published an open letter to the public saying, this is what's happening. This is why they're saying they need this. This is why we're saying it's a threat. They're kind of trying to get the public behind them because obviously they're going to lose unless the public really says, no, we don't want a backdoor on our phones. We want to buy a device that's secure.
Exactly.
And, it's there's pros and cons. I mean, obviously there's an argument either way, and what the solution is, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm leaning towards if you're building a secure device, there can't be any backdoors.
No, I agree. And to Apple, I guess, to their credit, when submitted with subpoenas and stuff from the FBI, they have actually complied for this device. There were some things where they weren't going to at all, and then with pressure and stuff, they realized, okay, yeah, well, basically it came down to if we refuse to help a suspect, help the FBI or law enforcement of any kind with this particular device on someone who has been witnessed on video committing this crime, and we wanted to find out if there's more stuff coming. if they harbor that, if they hide that or help hide that, I mean, that's obstruction of justice, right?
Yeah.
So ultimately they had to do that. Now, is putting a backdoor or refusing to put a backdoor on everybody's phone, is that obstruction of justice? No, it's not.
No.
Right? Not at all. And I agree. When I buy a device, I assume that I'm the only one who can access my data on that device when it is in my possession.
Yeah.
If it's out of my possession, well, I'm sure someone can get at stuff, because I mean, my password will take probably around 1,234 tries to get. But
yeah, and that's there's obviously the case to be made that law enforcement needs access to these devices, especially in a case like this. It's probably the smoking gun, quite literally,
right, yeah.
to get these people convicted. Which if they're guilty, they need to be convicted.
Yes.
But there's, unfortunately, the other 99.9999% of the time, it's going to be used for not good.
No, that's right, especially with backdoors, right? Absolutely.
And how do you balance that? How do you give access to just the FBI, just for good intentions, and block everyone else out? And with technology, unfortunately, you can't.
Well, and here's another question: is the FBI full of good intentions? Or are they, a federal agency paid for by the government that does whatever the government does for propaganda purposes? There's a whole lot of that potential.
Wow,
I'm sure
let's put on our tinfoil hats here for a second.
Well, sure,
no, definitely. But the thing with anything is, it's going to be the human error. Sure, 99.999% of the FBI people are going to have good intentions,
absolutely,
and are going to use this for good. But there's that one bad apple who now. It's like, hey, well, I can log into, my ex-wife's phone and see what she's doing. And, if there's a backdoor, there is that possibility. So,
well, my point is that if you give anybody or any organization absolute power, absolute power corrupts absolutely. I mean, and if you give anybody, any organization, if the FBI had the ability, or the CIA had the ability to track everybody's iPhone usage and everything they're doing, but only, of course, they would, the stipulation would be they would only use it when there's a problem, that would never stay the case. No. They would sit there and minority report it, right? Sit there and try and anticipate crime and spy on everybody, because they would have that absolute power, that absolute ability, and it would be horrible. That's not a tinfoil hat. That's human nature.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You give somebody an inch and they'll take a mile every single time. Yeah. So
yeah,
good on this.
So it's good. I guess it's good to see Apple standing up to them.
Yeah.
And everybody else is basically getting behind them, because, I mean, it's kind of a scary thing, because nobody wants the back door on their product to be used for huge security breach, because that's front page news.
Yeah. And that's what makes or breaks you as a company.
All of a sudden, if somebody breaches every iPhone and takes all this personal data and everything, you're probably not going to be buying an iPhone the next time.
Yeah.
Even though that backdoor could potentially be in every single device, you're going to steer away from Apple, because it's like, well, look what happened when you had an Apple.
Right. Yeah.
And so, I don't know. We'll see what happens. There's obviously some people that are in support of it.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't get to read the one, but they said Bill Gates had kind of come out and said that, Apple should basically unencrypt the phone for the FBI, which I don't know if, if we're talking about apples and oranges here, but yeah. I don't know. I think eventually there's going to be a backdoor in every device.
Probably.
I think the uneducated majority will, want this to be.
Yeah, probably, because they'll use tactics like this.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is every time there's one of these big cases, and they'll use the emotion card. It's like, well, if we would have known about this, it wouldn't have happened. And then people go, well, okay, well, maybe that's a good thing. And it might not happen right away, but they'll work away at this, because they, like you said, they want that absolute control. They want that, they want to easily be able to get onto everybody's device and see what they were up to. Which I don't know.
I mean, if someone wants, like, if some government organization wanted to look at my device, I just hand it to them and say, "Here, look." Like, really, but do I want
to be bored?
Exactly. But
you spend my credits on Farmville?
But if they say, well, we're just going to look anytime we want, no, screw you. There is no way that you have that right. But yet, if you need to look at it, fine, look at it.
Well, it's the whole give them an inch and they'll take a mile.
Exactly.
And that's I think we can see what's happening, and hopefully, I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't think there's really happy medium. I don't think there's something that they can do which keeps both sides happy. One side's going to be mad.
Right. I mean, what it comes down to is if there is a major criminal investigation where that person's property is seized for looking at evidence, I think there's no question that whoever it is, whether it's Apple, Google, Microsoft, whoever, I believe that they should be obligated to help provide evidence, or if the person is not guilty, would exonerate them, right?
Yeah.
But I think per case, I don't see a problem with it. Globally, broad spectrum, backdoors, bad.
Yeah.
Bad. Speaking of something that's bad, I guess that's Apple's market share. I guess they're not their market share, but their sales fell for the first time ever in 2015. They sold less phones than at the end of 2015 than they have been for a long time, and that's not necessarily the best thing for them.
No, they're not hurting. They're not gonna go under. So don't Don't worry, people. They're gonna be okay for a little bit. But yeah, their market share actually dropped year over year. They're not the only ones. Oh no, actually, sorry. Well, there's other ones that obviously lost market share as well. Samsung still did grow a little year over year to claim that number one spot in the worldwide stats. Apple is still sitting at number 2. But the winners are, the Huawei's,
Huawei, HTC.
There's lots of the little guys. I was trying to remember some off the top of my head that actually went up, because some of the other ones, the Lenovo's, they actually dropped, a percentage. I can never XIAOMI.
Show me. Yeah.
Show me. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, Show me. They dropped, 0.5%. So some of these bigger guys actually all did drop. Huawei was one of them that actually did go up. But it's all these other little guys that have come in. Let's say I don't know about HTC, but ZTE, Asus, all these little guys are starting to pick away at the market share, and they're starting to grab 1% here and 2% there, and it's really starting to kind of make things interesting, because there's a lot of these guys that are making low cost phones with all the same features that the Samsung and Apples are offering as well for a much higher price. So we're finally kind of seeing the market responding to these lower priced devices. And we were talking before, you had just reviewed the ZTE Axon phone, and
it's been depressing going back to my Nexus 6.
Yeah,
I never thought
which is probably twice the price.
Oh yeah, it was twice the price. Yeah, absolutely. Sticker price would be twice the price. And battery life and performance on that ZTE was equal, or battery life was twice as good. Performance was equal, right? So, yeah,
it's getting interesting, and I think people are more willing now to give these Huawei's and Xiaomi's and ZTE's and Asus and all these other, let's say, second tier brands a shot, because they're seeing more and more of them out there, and they're seeing more and more people going away from the Apples and the Samsungs, and price wise alone, there's a case to be made for all these other guys, because there's some nice devices out there that are a fraction of the price, half or a third of what a new Apple or Samsung device is, yet still do absolutely everything that they do. Yeah. So now the market's kind of showing it. It's Apple seems to be, I guess they're the biggest casualty with almost a 3% drop, I guess 2.7% drop, which isn't a lot of percents, but it's a fair amount of phones.
Yeah, exactly. It's one phone that actually really interests me. It'd be more of a fun phone than probably something I would want in my pocket every day, is Caterpillar's new phone.
Yeah, Caterpillar, who is a big player in the smartphone market. They make tractors, graders, big trucks, and smartphones. So
exactly.
I always post all these weird brands, like Gibson, they're making a smartphone, and
Exactly.
I almost post them just have to, poke these companies that are just branding these phones,
Right.
because basically they're the same phone as everyone else is offering. They just put, their fancy label on it and then try to sell it as a premium phone. So Caterpillar, I kind of thought was the same thing until I actually saw this tank of a phone.
Yeah.
And it's actually pretty awesome.
This phone is awesome. Not only is it like incredibly tough, and if you close a couple of ports on it with like switch covers, it actually operates up to an hour at a depth of over 16 feet, fully submerged underwater. It has got a thermal imaging camera built in.
Yeah, that's the kind of the
That's
feature
the
that's
big
really
deal.
setting it apart. Is it's got the FLIR1 thermal camera, so you can actually, really for the everyday use, it's just kind of gimmicky. But for the professional that's actually, trying to take a picture of it to see if there's any hot spots, when they're doing construction or whatever. Yeah, it's kind of cool, especially like on equipment. Anybody who operates heavy equipment, bearings go out, stuff like that. A thermal imaging camera actually has a practical use. And the nice thing is, like you said, this is a tank of a phone. It's got the die-cast steel frame inside. So basically, what was their specs for how much they could drop it? A drop on hard concrete from 5.5 feet. It easily survives.
Yeah, which most phones don't without a case on. But this thing, well, it's integrated, right?
Yeah, the case is basically integrated, but it actually looks pretty cool too. Like it doesn't look like just an industrial only design. Like it's actually kind of cool. Like, if you were using one of these, people are like, holy, whoa, what's that? Like that's neat. And I think it actually may be more popular than anybody would ever expect if you said Caterpillar was going to be making a phone or branding a phone.
Right.
And it looks like the price is going to be about $600, which for an industrial strength phone with a thermal imaging camera, that's actually not bad.
No, not at all. Includes Bluetooth, NFC, FM radio tuner, barometer, altimeter sensors. Looks like it will actually have micro SD support as well. Yeah, 720.
The screen's nothing to write home about. It's going to be that 1280 by 720 screen, so it's not going to be as high.
But yeah, 4.7-inch screen, though it's 720. Like it's not going to look
no, it's still
spectacular,
going to look good.
but it's going to be great. And what that's going to do with that 3,800 milliamp battery, it's going to last you for days. I mean, unless you're taking thermal images all day long.
Yeah.
And for the first week you are. Let's be real.
Oh yeah. You're going to be. Yeah.
You're going to be walking around just looking through the camera. Yeah, it's either way. Very cool.
Yeah, but it's kind of cool. I'd actually like to see one of these. But as far as that market is a big one. That industrial
really
construction, like there's a lot of phones that get bought. And if a company can buy ones that are actually going to stand up, they don't have to buy a $600 phone and then $100 OtterBox or
exactly.
Life case or whatever. If you can just buy these devices, they have possibly kind of a gimmicky feature, but it's a tough phone. I think you sell a lot of these, and I think you may have this niche market that a lot of people have kind of overlooked. And this actually, I think this will actually be popular if they can get it into the right channels. I mean, if it's you can only order it on, some Chinese website, yeah, it's going to be tough. But if you could get these in the store, I think a lot of guys in construction and stuff like that are would consider one of these. And, probably the brand name of putting Cat on there probably isn't that stupid of an idea either.
Yeah, exactly. And people are sitting there griping about the resolution of the screen. Basically, actually, the resolution at 1280 by 720, that's very, very similar to an iPhone, by the way, just FYI.
Yeah, just
so
I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. I originally read the article because I was like, oh, this is going to be stupid. There's going to be this cheap cat. There's going to be a cat logo on some cheap phone, and they're going to be trying to say, oh, this is a high quality phone. From the looks of it, this is a high quality phone. And actually, I think this is one example of a company not in the smartphone game but using their brand name actually is a good idea.
Yeah, no, I think this is good.
Most of the time, 99% of the time, it's a terrible idea. And some of these companies, why you would put your brand name on some cheap phone?
Hey, I've got a Reebok phone.
Yeah, and that's what it is. That's what it is. It'll be like, oh, well, but mine's a Nike phone. It's like, yeah, well, they're all, some
They're all made by
$50 Chinese brand.
Elephone.
Yeah.
All right. Last story. Gosh, this is a long show. Last story is Facebook plans to put ads in Messenger, and why wouldn't they?
Who didn't see that coming?
Well, I believe you called it, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really hate you. Okay, I will not install Facebook Messenger on my phone.
Right.
So I'm gonna stick to this because it's just another. It probably works as well as anything else. You can send messages to your phone.
Crazy.
Great.
Really
great.
innovative technology.
Fantastic. You've got all your Facebook contacts. It's easy. But you knew they were going to start advertising. You knew they were going to start spamming you because that's what Facebook does. That's how Facebook makes money. And so I will not use it. If somebody sends me a Facebook message, I will wait till I get home and then reply to them through Facebook on my computer just to prove a point.
Exactly. Why wouldn't you?
Now probably a lot more people are going to do that because really all they were doing was they were trying to get people to start using it for free, get you hooked, and then once they get enough people that are reliant on it, and that's the primary or one of the ways they communicate with their friends, then you start advertising, and it sucks.
Absolutely.
Just use a text message. What's so hard about that?
Yeah, exactly. How to, well, whatever.
Yeah.
But see, Facebook Messenger integrates their calling feature, right? So you can call with Facebook Messenger as well. It's like WhatsApp. You can actually make phone calls. Can you make phone calls with WhatsApp? You can't.
Yeah. Yes, you can.
Oh, can. Okay. So Facebook Messenger does that as well. So they're trying to make that your default dialer and your default SMS client, so they get everything. And if you have migrated to that, then there's no cost if you're calling other people on Facebook, even if they're in China. There's no cost. So that's kind of if people bought into that, then it's going to be hard for them to give that up.
Yeah, WhatsApp does it, but unfortunately WhatsApp has been bought by Facebook, so...
Expect this to come to WhatsApp as well.
Will we start seeing ads in WhatsApp?
Yes.
Probably.
Because they made it free.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately the really crappy thing with any free services. They got to find a way to monetize it because they've got investors who are saying, well, you got 800 million users. This is costing us millions of dollars because... by the time you have server capacity and all the software support team for 800 million active users, it costs you a lot of money. So then they start getting poked like, you have to monetize this, you have to monetize this. And unfortunately, ads are annoying, but they work. People will pay for them. So
exactly. That's just the way the way it is. So yeah, expect it to come to WhatsApp. So you know what? It might not be a bad time to use a different technology called SMS. It works.
That's a fun way where they can advertise to you.
Exactly. Well, they can. Sometimes you get ads from from SMS things.
But
it's pretty rare.
In the end, you pay a little and then you don't get advertised to, which I think I'm kind of a fan of as long as that price isn't too high.
Exactly. Well, thanks for joining, Jay. Once again, we actually have a few things up, or that ZTE review, actually, you can take a look at that. One thing that ZTE Axon does that a lot of other phones for that price don't do is slow motion video. We took some video of that. We tested that out. And, we tested the heck out of that phone. I had it for way longer than I was supposed to, but it was hard to put down. It was hard to give up. Anyhow, so check out that review and more over at bcchardware.com. Jason, thanks so much for joining once again.
We'll see you next week.
Absolutely.